Well, they want to be able to develop more content that can go through these pipes. They don't want the content providers, like, I mean, the people who own the pipes, to make deals with their own content providers and say that, you know, we're gonna give you Google's services at a slower speed than we're gonna give you Yahoo's services. They feel like that would inhibit competition. And, you know, these organizations, these people who own the pipe, it's not like they're big on competition. You know, they're merging. They don't want to compete in many markets. Most homes only have one option as an internet service provider.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, most cities like Denver sign a monopoly agreement if you want.
Let's see. We've got dial-up. We have Quest DSL. We have Comcast, of course, which is high-speed internet on the cable company. You can go through satellite providers. You can go through, you pulled out your iPhone, you can now get a adapter to stick it into your computer and use Cricket. Mm-hmm. And it sounds to me like we've got a lot of choices on how to get to that pipe. How do you figure that we don't have choices?
Well, just in terms of like cable franchise agreements and phone franchise agreements, at least in Denver, you can only get DSL. Oh, you can get DSL through multiple people, but you can only get cable through Comcast. And there are these agreements that we sign with these companies. And there's also just less incentive for a company to be a second person to enter a market. So a lot of these markets do just have one person who owns the pipes. But as satellite or as other wireless options become available.
It sounds to me like we keep regulating a technology that by the time we get the regulations through, the technology has changed. Yeah, we have to run wires to all these people's houses. Now we can run a cell phone there at a fraction of the cost. Tell me about this.
Well, so there are things that, and we couldn't possibly predict what direction innovation is going to go or what the next type of wireless broadband network will be. We never would have predicted that you could get the internet on a smartphone, on a handheld device. And who knows what things are going to be like, 5, 10, 15 years from now. Regulation is completely antithetical to that. Unless you have an environment where people feel free to innovate, to invest and get a return on their investment. Without that sort of culture, regulation stifles innovation and it encourages stasis. So that's another thing that I'm very concerned about.
Well, talk about should government own the broadband system? I've heard people say in places like my home of Boulder, they love this stuff. They want to turn the whole place into one Wi-Fi place and government will run it. And that way everybody has access to it. And so just like the city owns the water pipe coming in, now they're going to own all the Wi-Fi. Is that something that your organization or organizations like yours would support?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's another alternative. I think we have social interests that aren't going to be served by the market. You know, there's plenty of examples of them, from like military to education. The market won't provide for national defense, and it won't provide for ensuring equal access to information and media. You know, that's why this station here that we're sitting at exists, because there was a perception that the market isn't going to provide for all perspectives in the media system.
But you really want governments on a municipality basis to say, you know what, we're going to nationalize, in essence, and buy up this equipment. We're going to tell you what the technology is going to be. Now, I can get it when it comes to water, because I don't want 5 different companies bringing water lines down the street. I can get it, but at that point, people need food more than they need internet access. The hell if I think that the city of Boulder should take over King Soopers, Albertsons, and Safeway, and Whole Foods, and Wild Oats, because they can provide it better. Food is more important. Why shouldn't the same argument apply for food then?
I mean, in a democracy, this information is necessary for it to work. So government...
Food isn't?
Food is definitely necessary. And yeah, I mean...
So doesn't the same argument apply?
Well, I mean, right now we're talking about distribution of information. And so let's look, 200 years ago, the primary way that all information was distributed was through the mail. And the government created the U.S. Postal Service. And today, that's just one of your options.
What a success story it's been.
What a success story it's been.
It's the market leader. I mean, it has over 40%. It's bigger than FedEx or UPS. I mean, it is the market leader.
Because it is a government monopoly that's not allowed. Nobody else is able to use those post office boxes. But get back to my analogy.
Well, it is just an option now. It's not a government monopoly. You can use use FedEx and you can
no,
use UPS.
there is
for
nobody
mailing
else that
things.
can touch my mailbox. There's nobody else that has a right to touch that and drop information off that way. But tell me, go back to food for a second. We need food better. Why doesn't the same argument apply? Why can't government provide our food better?
I'm not an expert in food distribution, but I am in information distribution. So I'm talking to you about the analogy that fits best. And I think having a government-run alternative for internet access, and the government does have a lot of pipes. You know, Comcast is only going to reach the Western Slope now because they're using pipes that CDOT laid. So the government does have a lot of pipes. It could be opened up for a public option for broadband access, and I think it would be analogous to the U.S. Post Service.
All right, the Post Office is a government-owned monopoly. It has to pay its own price, and that's why they always threaten to cut down our services.
Our Saturday delivery.
Our Saturday delivery.
Right.
The great Washington Monument gamut. Whenever you hear them saying, we're studying closing Saturday service, you know a postal rate increase is coming in 6 months like clockwork. All right. That being said, why not? You know, there are little old ladies who are going to be watching their video not on cable or over the air, but they're going to be watching it on YouTube or NBC.com. Why not help them out?
Yeah, so the argument that you need to make for government ownership of something, is that it must be a public good, which means that equal access must be both efficient and necessary. And there is no evidence whatsoever, no reasoned argument or unreasoned argument really, that could make that case for the internet. What Tony is talking about is fairness. What he has said, to his credit, explicitly, is that government-owned broadband is necessary to ensure equal access of information to everyone, everywhere. Now, he is allowed to have that view, and he's, again, I give him credit for making that explicit, but that is a value statement. That's a normative statement. That's a political value statement of values that he embraces, but is by no means one that I embrace, and it's by no means one that American society embraces. So that's an important distinction that needs to be made here.
All right, we've got about a minute left here, so let's wrap this up. Give me the quick bumper sticker argument. You want net neutrality, and it's going to help the nation because?
Because in order for us to have a functioning democracy, our public, our electorate, has to have access to the information they need to be responsible members of a democracy. And that information, that social conversation, that social awareness is carried through these pipes. And the people who own those pipes don't have any incentive to support democracy. They have an incentive to maximize profits. We have to balance that.
Why should they say no?
Those two are not contradictory. You can incentivize, be incentivized to maximize profits, and you can promote democracy. There's no evidence that any of the things that he's talking about are ever going to be real problems, and there's enormous evidence that the kind of regulation that is being proposed is going to lead to tremendous problems.
Barry, thank you. Tony, thank you. Most of all, thank you. And remember, this Wednesday at just before noon, the Independence Institute will host a couple FCC commissioners to talk about this. Go to independenceinstitute.org. Sign up if you want to join us for that. Again, that's independenceinstitute.org. Thank you for tuning in to the premiere edition of Devil's Advocate, and by all means, tell a friend, and we'll see you next week.